Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Dead End Sports Podcast. This is a weekly sports podcast. We like to call it the best couple of hours of your sports week. Thank you for tuning in and checking us out. I am your host, 12 Kyle. And once again, this is Dead End Sports. This is the place where sports opinions collide. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of NFL talk, a lot of NBA talk. A lot of stuff is in the news. I will preface this podcast by saying, first of all, thanks for listening. But if you came to not hear us talk about sports and politics, you may as well want to turn this podcast off right now. So let's go ahead and get it started. But before we get it started, man, got to introduce the homies. Filling in for our boy B, who will not be on the podcast this week, as our homie Q, the six man Q. What up, man?
Hey, no, man, just here to fill in for B. I know he's probably still mourning after that robbery that happened on Sunday.
Hey, no ski mask was needed, man. B's Detroit Lions
keep it down.
No doubt. Also joining us is homie Ken. Ken, what up, man?
Chilling, man. Chilling. It's been a long day, and a long weekend, eventful weekend. But you know, we here and we maintain and take it day by day.
And that's all you can do, man. I'll go ahead and get it started, man. We, if you've been hiding under a rock or maybe visiting the planet Mars and you just got back on Earth and did not get a chance to see what happened this past weekend, well, this is the place where you want to be to listen to this podcast. We have, very stark opinions about what happened, and we're going to give it to you raw and uncut as we do each and every week. As many of you know, or maybe don't know, the commander-in-chief of the United States made some comments. I think he was speaking to a crowd for a rally in Huntsville, Alabama, of all places. And he was making some comments, and I guess somehow he stumbled upon the NFL. And I guess he decided to take it there. And he mentioned the fact that he was talking about NFL players not standing for the national anthem and disrespecting, quote unquote, our country and our flags. And he said, I quote, don't you just wish, some of those owners would get that son of a bitch off the field, in reference to a player who would kneel while the national anthem is being played. So let's start right there. Q, I'll start first with you, man. What were your thoughts when you heard those words come out of the mouth of the commander in tweet?
Not shocked at all, man. In fact, I thought it was just standard 45. This is the era of Donald Trump. This is what we live in right now. We have open bigotry in the White House, and yes, this is not the first time he's been in there, but the arrogance, the lack of nuance, and just the unabashed bigotry is probably what makes 45 as unique as he is. The way that he goes about his everyday probably isn't anything different from a Reagan, but just the rhetoric that he uses is specifically unique to this era. So for him to say that, I think they were in Alabama. I think he pointed that out. And it really doesn't shock me that he was catering to a rural Trump voting white Huntsville, Alabama crowd. So am I supposed to be shocked that he was pandering to his base? These are the people that elected him, and they certainly weren't electing him because they, wanted some nuanced and fleshed out policy on foreign, policy. They voted for him because he catered to the fact that, hey, you're disenfranchised, you're white, and I'm going to make America better for you. And we're going to go back to the days in which you were on top, which was never, or at least make you feel like you're on top. And you're going to have a voice in the White House to spew the bigotry that you believe and endorse in your everyday lives. So this is not new. This is just too unique to the era that we're in. So to firmly answer this question, I'm not shocked by this. It's obviously disgusting. It's obviously disrespectful. It's obviously inherently racist. But this is no different from his comments about a judge who shouldn't have stood on the bench because he's Mexican. This isn't anything different about him saying there were good people on both sides in Charlottesville. This is no different from that. So am I supposed to be shocked? The answer is no, Kyle. In fact, I just basically went about my day and said, yeah, that's just standard 45.
True indeed. Ken, what about you, man? These comments, I guess, were made late this past Friday night. Most of us probably didn't catch wind of it until either late Friday night or early Saturday morning, or by midday at the very least, because it seems at that point he was virtually going to war with both the NFL and the NBA, but with the NFL. So what were your thoughts when you heard him say those make that comment?
You know, I'm glad that I actually have a chance to do this show, because we talked about it on Is the Mic Still On? That'll be out tomorrow. But you know, we had a guest, and you know, it really was a forum for Rod and Adon and Mike to really kind of talk through what occurred, and I'm glad that I have a chance to speak directly to sports fans, speak directly to everyone else that decide to listen, and I got another outlet, right? So when I saw the comments, I was a little, I don't know how I felt, Kyle, to be honest. I'm trying to recall my feelings when I saw the notification on my phone. I think I kind of chuckled and laughed in disbelief, you know, and I think I kind of, you know, told my wife, and I was like, man, you're not going to believe this, which, you know, I start that out a lot when I'm talking about Trump. Like Q says, nothing should surprise us anymore. It's obvious we can apply context to the situation. He's a showman, and he spoke to his base. But what I also want people to understand and know is that he wasn't only speaking to his base. He was speaking to America. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of Americans that felt that way. And they are galvanizing, and they're getting behind this, because this extended beyond parties. This became a matter of quote unquote patriotism for a lot of people, because a lot of America disagree with what these players are doing, mainly because they can't identify with the issues that we're facing in America. They feel like it's overblown, that we're making it all up. And we should be happy that we're making millions of dollars and we can come out of, for some, situation of poverty or the projects or whatever. And we should just take that money and run, boy, run, mm-hmm. right? That was really expressed and shown when the NFL protested Donald Trump's comments, when they booed what he said. We have a president that called NFL players, let's be specific here, mm-hmm. Black NFL players, sons of bitches. That's unbecoming of the office. And it's sad that I agree with Shannon. It's sad that it has taken something like that for people to look up and be like, this fool crazy. Out of all of the things he said, and this was the one that kind of got people. And this was the one that, caused the NFL to take a stand. So it was unfortunate, man, that he went there, but it's not surprising because this is what he does.
That's a good point, man. That is a very good point. I agree with you and Q. I think when I didn't hear the I think I saw something, a tweet or something, and I didn't really pay attention. This was like Saturday morning, and then I think somebody had retweeted the quote into my timeline, and then when I read the quote, and then I went and saw the clip. And I, much like everybody else, or I don't want to say much like everybody else. I just know for me, I wasn't surprised at all. Given the fact that this is a person who has, talked about grabbing pussy, talked openly about shooting somebody and getting away with it as a candidate, not as the leader of the free world, as a candidate, talked about grabbing pussy and as a candidate whom we've never seen his tax returns. And as, that has, he led a campaign that was, as bitter and decisive and, just everything, feminists. From calling, women pigs and, talking about women bleeding. And like I said, again, taking pussy and all. You name it. It's you're almost, even talking about the veteran who, the guy whose family, perished or whatever like that, the soldier that died, and he was talking bad about their family.
Goldberg.
Yeah. To even talking bad about, the great John McCain. This is who he is. It's sad that this is who he is because he is the leader of the free world. This is the person that you elected. This is the person that you said, okay, you know what? I'm going to let him represent me and my country. This is what you asked for. I don't understand why people are surprised. It was funny to me to read some responses of people and their shock and awe of the fact that he said, listen, anybody listen to this podcast. I've lived through a few presidencies. The earliest presidency that I can remember was Jimmy Carter. Now, Nixon was president when I was a baby, but I don't remember. I remember what happened to him. But my first memories of a president was Jimmy Carter. So from Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan to the Bushes, Clinton, Obama, I've never heard a president curse before on an open mic. And this dude, he hasn't been in office, 6, 7 months, 9 months. I don't know how long he's been out, but it feels like 10 years. And he gets up there and calls somebody a son of a bitch. What person of influence, that you elected uses that kind of language? So unfortunately for me, the bar is so low. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he does some of the things that he does. I'm not surprised that he says the things that he says. This is a guy who waged a 140 character war this past weekend with two major entities being the NBA and the NFL. And we have Puerto Rico without power. I ain't see no tweets about Puerto Rico. None.
He said they owe money.
Man, I don't give a shit. I don't care how much they owe. They don't have power. So it's more important to you to talk about a flag, that represents the country and people being disrespectful. And we're gonna get into that too. Disrespecting this flag or this idea. And here's when you listen to the comment, go back and watch the clip. He said that disrespects our national anthem, our flag. When you say our, who do you mean? Again, this is who you elected. I don't understand why you would put somebody. Now keep in mind, for those of you listening, And I don't care who you voted for or when you voted, if you voted at all. Hopefully you did, but if you didn't, I don't care. That's past tense now. But here's my point. We just saw a man in the White House do 8 years in the White House. There's no way as a candidate he would have even been nominated for the office of the presidency had he bragged about grabbing pussy. No way. There's no way that he would have gotten an endorsement if he had talked about shooting somebody. No way. But this is who you elected. This is your man. This is your guy. This is what you wanted. So I said all that to say this. No, I'm not surprised that he said this. I'm not surprised at all. I'm really surprised that it took this long for him to come up with it. But again, it goes back to what you said, Ken, playing to the audience. He's talking to a whole bunch of people in rural Alabama who voted for him, most of them whom jobs he's probably promised that they're not going to get. And no, this isn't a political show, but I'm going to make it political because you have a whole segment of people that voted for him and believed in these ideas. And, nothing's happening. He hasn't done anything since he's been in office. He hasn't, but piss people off, which he's good at. I will say this much. What I know about him, he's always been the same. So it's not like he got in the White House and became somebody different. This is who he is. So again, I don't understand why those of you who are surprised are surprised. He is who he's always been. You hire a clown, you should expect a circus. And that's what we have. And that's what we have to deal with every day. A freaking circus. So I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised he called out the NFL. I'm not surprised he called somebody a son of a bitch or whomever. I'm not surprised at all. And I don't think anybody listening should be. But we'll get more into what he said and how he went about it in just a second. Joining us also is the homie FIFO. FIFO, what's up, man?
Yo, what it do?
Chilling, man. We're just getting the podcast jumping. We got Q on here and Ken as well, and we're talking about the commander in tweet, his comments. What did you think when you heard that he called when he said "get the son of a bitch off the field"?
You know what, man? I said this earlier. I remember when Trump ran. People didn't think it was going to happen. I was like, it possibly can happen, and it has happened, and it's been the perfect catalyst to make change because Barack's presidential election was all on change, and nothing really changed. I didn't feel like much changed. He did his thing. We got health care for everybody, but in all honesty, for the people, nothing really changed. And I think that Trump, and obviously in an indirect way, but obviously directly as well, is going to afford us the opportunity to talk about the elephant in the room. It's going to afford us the opportunity to talk about what's uncomfortable. And that's what we're seeing unfold right in front of our eyes. And I think Shannon Sharp made a great point. Now we're changing the narrative about respecting the flag versus the entire reason why Colin took a knee in the first place. And that is because of the inequalities and injustice. And when you listen to some of these rich white billionaires, you could tell that what the NFL did was primarily in a response to Donald Trump.
Of course.
And even though I applaud the solidarity, but when we were talking about the real topic at hand, black people getting killed by cops, they didn't show solidarity. So that's the issue. That's the problem. This is just one of those things, man, that when I was a kid growing up reading the history books and all of that, I didn't think I was going to live in the time to see 9/11 and to see such a divisive president as Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, I think that it's a good thing because now, because we're talking about it, but I just hope we don't lose sight of the reason why. It's not about the national anthem. It is because there are racial injustices. And That's all I got to say on it.
And you know what? I want to add to that because what we saw this weekend, and it's really in response to what Raph is saying, like the narrative, the conversation has shifted. The protest this weekend was about what Trump said and about the NFL saying you can't tell us what to do. I think everything that they did was bullshit. I really do. Because they didn't do it for the right reasons.
Right.
You know what I mean? They just did it to stand against Trump's comments. They didn't give a damn about Kaepernick when Kaepernick did it last year.
Oh no! This time
Reed.
last year, it was on fire. This time last year, it was the whole football arena was on fire. You couldn't have told us that 365 days later that you would have, solidarity of NFL players locking arms.
What we saw this weekend, and it's really in response to what Raph is saying, like the narrative, the conversation has shifted. The protest this weekend was about what Trump said and about the NFL saying you can't tell us what to do. I think everything that they did was bullshit. I really do. Because they didn't do it for the right reasons.
Right.
You know what I mean? They just did it to stand against Trump's comments. They didn't give a damn about Kaepernick when Kaepernick did it last year. Or
this time last year it was on fire.
I was, I've had time to think about it, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, when Colin was doing what he was doing, everybody had something to say against him, and nobody was taking a knee or speaking out for him the way that it appears they are now. This is not a demonstration in support of Kaepernick. This is a demonstration in support of we're the NFL, we can do in whatever we want. And that's why I find it all just show, and it's disturbing, it's disappointing, because they had an opportunity a long time ago to make this right. This guy could have had a job and this thing could have been dead by now, but they didn't. And Trump make a comment, and now we have owners. we have owners coming down to the stands and locking arms, protesting, kneeling. Are you serious?
Okay, so now the next question I had was, obviously, most of this conversation has been dominated as far as talking about the national anthem. So let's start right there. 2-part question. And FIFO, I'll start with you first. Do you stand for the national anthem when it's played? And how do you feel about athletes who take a knee?
I typically stand for the national anthem. It's just customary. In terms of athletes kneeling, sitting, doing whatever they need to do to use their platform as, to make sure that their voice is heard, I'm 1,000% fine with it. Is this not the land of the free? Am I not free to make my own decisions? Am I not free to voice my displeasure? Am I not free? Can I not do that without ridicule, or should I not be able to do it without ridicule? Can we not just sit down and have a conversation as to why I'm taking these actions? So that's where I'm at with it. again, I'm all for the conversation because you have to address the elephant in the room. And like I said before in the previous topic, like we have the perfect catalyst to do that. We have the perfect catalyst for change. So let's take advantage of the moment and let's not lose the reason why this started over 14 months ago. Let's not lose that reason because right now we're losing it in the media. Let's remind people what this knee was for. So I'm perfectly fine with athletes doing it.
No doubt, no doubt. What about you, Q? Two-part question. Do you stand for the national anthem? And, how do you feel about athletes who take a knee?
Yeah, man. I haven't, I personally haven't stood for the national anthem since 10th grade.
Okay.
And that was, I believe, when Trayvon Martin was murdered. And after the verdict came down that summer, I was just like, yeah, I'm not standing for a flag that never has stood for me or my people. So that's just personally how I feel about it. Shannon Sharp has very eloquently pointed out the origin, and many great scholars on social media and in academia have pointed out the origins of the lyrics for the national anthem and how it points out in certain stanzas how America is going to, regardless, this is in the lyrics, talking about how America is going to recapture its slaves, and no matter where slaves run, this is where you can't hide. So doesn't really sound like the land of the free to me, but to each his own. How do I feel about athletes kneeling? That's kind of a loaded question, Kyle, because I think there's two different stances that you can give on this. And the first one is I felt a certain way about people like Eric Reed and Colin Kaepernick when they were doing it. I felt like it was really courageous. I felt like it was really going out there on a limb and starting the conversation and actually doing the work, because I want to reiterate that Colin Kaepernick is just not only kneeling, but he's also doing the work in the community. He's also giving back. But also with that being said, I do feel a certain way about athletes now kneeling. And I feel like it's very toothless because for a lot of them, the movement has been completely co-opted by language and rhetoric that is completely antithetical to what the original mission statement was. I'm kneeling, this Collins' words paraphrased, I'm kneeling for injustice, the systematic racism within America, and police brutality. Until America stands for Black and brown bodies that are murdered at the hands of state-sanctioned violence, then I will stand. Until they stand for them, then I won't stand. But that's just what the mission statement was. Now, what do we see now? We see a bunch of people kneeling in unity, quote unquote. That's the most toothless, missing the point. And it's just basically what they do to all radical movements that they want to co-opt. They talk about unity. They talk about love and all these baseless, empty platitudes that deflect from the main mission statement. The mission statement was for Black and brown bodies being killed by the police. And now it took Donald Trump calling people SOBs for people to stay in the locker room and for people to kneel. Personally, I think it's very cowardly that if this is your first time kneeling just because the president said something, where were you 14 months ago when Colin was out there by himself, just him and Eric Reed? Where were you then? You were collecting your paycheck because no one called you your mother and a B.
You could ask where they were 2 weeks ago.
Literally, where were you a week ago? Where were you? Yes, like salute to people like Chris Long and salute to people like Malcolm Jenkins who actually do work in the community and whatnot. But where were the people who feel some type of way now? Just last week, you were perfectly fine collecting your check. I don't know what you do in your personal life. You could be completely within the community doing what you do. But all I know is that unless there is a public stance, I can only go off of your public stance. I mean, unless I know your private stance, I can only go off of what you look like in public and what you do in public. And what it looks like in public to me is that a lot of these guys are cowards. Plain and simple, man. To me, you let Colin sit out there for months until the president of the United States says something, and now you want to kneel in unity. Dude, we got lawyers at Georgetown University today who kneeled because Jeff Sessions was coming to speak, completely co-opting the radical movement that Colin Kaepernick started. And I mean radical in a great way. I'm never using radical in a bad way. So radical just means grabbing things at the root of the problem, by the way, for people who are listening. That's the language I'm using right now, not like radical terrorists or anything. But Colin's radical movement to look at the root of the systemic oppression, one of the symptoms at this point, that's what the mission statement was. So where were all these guys just last week, man? They were collecting checks. They were completely silent, and they were completely complacent. The movement has now been co-opted, man. They done gentrified the knee. The knee is now the dab. It's played out now, and personally, it's rooted in respectability. It's rooted in respectability. I liked it better when Colin just sat down and didn't even get on his knee. I'm not even going to get up for the anthem to kneel. I sit down because that's just how I personally feel about it. But people ridicule Colin so much that he even gave a concession. Colin used to sit down. People forget that.
Right.
He used to sit on his butt, not saying anything. But now he gave a symbolic gesture of I'm going to kneel. I wouldn't even kneel for them. So he gave a concession, and people still didn't want that. So now you got people kneeling against Trump, kneeling against, kneeling for love, kneeling for unity. Now, how about you kneel for black people? How about you kneel for brown people who are shot by the police? And why don't you ever kneel? Well, just a week ago, why don't you kneel when there's no conviction? Why don't you kneel when Freddie Gray's killers get off? Why don't you kneel when the police officer who illegally choked Eric Garner out in New York City gets to go off scot-free? Why don't you kneel when the police get off scot-free for killing Tamir Rice? Why don't you kneel when Sandra Bland is mysteriously dead in her jail cell? Why don't you kneel when Charlene Lyles is a pregnant woman shot 7 times in Seattle? Why don't you kneel when Terrence Crutcher is murdered in cold blood on camera and the police officer gets transferred with paid leave? But you're going to kneel for love. Okay.
Ain't that a bitch? Ken, what about you, man? Great points, by the way, Q. Do you stand for the anthem? And second part, how do you feel about athletes taking a knee?
I guess the question for me would I stand for the anthem? I don't think I would. I'm not in a lot of situations where that has been the case, but I can say this. In the 5th and 6th grade, one or the other, right? I got sent to the principal's office because I refused.
Ken, was this in the 70s or the 80s?
And it may have been earlier than that, but I do recall in my
50s.
youth.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. So I couldn't resist.
It's all good. Because I refused to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh wow.
Yeah. This was early, and I recall that just thinking about one day about the flag, thinking about the national anthem, thinking about this country. I'm from a military family. My dad did a tour. My uncle did a tour. He didn't come back right. So I lost my uncle. My father-in-law did a tour. My brother was in the military. I come from a military family. And for me, when I think about the national anthem, and when I think about the protest, and when I think about me not standing for the national anthem, it has nothing to do with my lack of disrespect for the flag, because I can relate to the people that have also military, parents in the military and who may have lost a loved one. So I'm not an outsider, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? When I think about the national anthem, I think that, one, we see a lot of people talking about players disrespecting the military, not caring about the military, that some have given their life to fight for the rights of this country. Well, I want to remind those same people that this country also don't give a damn about that same military.
Nope.
Because if they really did, then the VA hospitals would be better. We wouldn't have veterans out here without jobs. We wouldn't have veterans out there in homeless right now. Veterans would have been treated a lot better than they have. This country has historically proven that they don't care about the military. The reason why people are standing behind this military now, this nationalism, this patriotism, is because they're happy that these people are fighting because they don't want to or are scared to do so. They're doing something for them. And when I think about that, and I think about the trials and tribulations of my uncle or the trials and tribulations of my dad, so I know what this country has done to its veterans that they so-called love, right? That's what I think about. I look at what Richard Petty said, and he said that anybody that don't stand up for that ought to be out of the country, period. If they don't appreciate where they're at, what got them where they're at? The United States. Well, Petty, what got us here was slave ships. What got you this country is genocide. This isn't even your country. You stole it. You took it. You murdered people to get it. That's how you got here. And that's how you got this country. Did you forget? Seems like you forgot. So this isn't really about this love of country. This is about white supremacy. This is about freedoms. This isn't about men that are dying for the freedoms that are in this country, because I can tell you, and we know, the freedoms don't include everyone, especially people of color. So when I think about athletes taking a knee, I'm with Kyle. I'm with Q. It has been co-opted. I loved it at first. I thought it was great. But what I want now is, and what I really need, is a plan of action. I don't want you to kneel indefinitely. I want you to kneel with a plan like Colin had. And it could be for a short window of time. But what I also want you to do is that when you're kneeling, I want you to take action and promote what you're doing, so the talking points won't get away from you. And people can use your lack of promotion against you. There's a Rashard Matthews of the Tennessee Titans said he is going to kneel until Trump apologizes. That's a waste of a kneel, because we all know good and damn well that Trump isn't going to apologize. What are you kneeling for? You're kneeling so Trump would apologize, but when Colin was kneeling to protest the racial inequities and the state-sanctioned killings, where were you at then? You know what I'm saying? So for me, when I think about the anthem, I think about a country that don't have love for people that look like me.
No doubt. Hey, man, great points. As for me, do I stand for the national anthem? I do. I think much like everybody else, I grew up doing it because I played sports, because I played football. It was always something that, you stood with, when the national anthem was being played. So I don't have a problem standing for the national anthem, but I'm probably not the person to ask, because when the national anthem is played, you're supposed to stand at attention and you're supposed to look at the flag, I guess, and put your hand over your heart or all this good stuff. Because I played football, I was always moving and I'm kind of rocking back and forth, kind of swaying side to side, getting my thoughts together. And that's always been the case. So and it didn't dawn on me until maybe a couple of years ago that even if I'm at a sporting event, I'm still kind of doing the same thing. I'm paying attention, but I'm not paying attention. That's just me. So I don't have a problem standing for it. I'm not doing anything in particular, or maybe I'm not doing what everybody else is doing as they're, singing or what have you. But, the next time you're at I said this last year on last year's podcast, next time you're at a sporting event, look around. You'll see people digging up their nose, digging up their butt, talking, texting. Everybody's not paying attention to the flag. Everybody's not paying attention to the national anthem being played. You're supposed to stop moving as far as walking. But if you're at a football game, you best believe there are people still walking, trying to get to their seats. So, where the narrative has changed and where, the guy in the White House helped change the narrative, that's what it became. It became about the anthem and the flag. It ain't about that. Very few people know what it's about. And that's the thing that really has bothered me about this whole this past weekend. It's a show. That's all it was. It was a show. It was a show of force for the NFL to stand up to the leader and the commander in tweet. That was it. It wasn't about, what Colin stood for. There's no way that if you go back 365 days from today and listen to one of our podcasts or just examine the landscape of where the NFL was last year this time, that you could have told us that a year later, owners would be standing on the field, locked in arms, singing fucking Kumbaya. Come on, man. Give me a break. What we saw this weekend was a farce. It was what the NFL is. The NFL is about, and see, that's why I don't get pissed off with the NFL, because I know what the NFL is and I know what they're about. They're about protecting themselves and their brand. And when somebody comes out and says, hey, not only is your league not safe, not only are you not getting ratings, but you should make these black men stand up and salute the flag. And, one thing I do know from being in business all these years is that rich white people don't like it when you tell them what to do. Period. But see, one thing that runs everything is money. And they feel like, okay, well, we got money. We didn't make our money by someone telling us what to do. You're not going to tell us what to do. So you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's join the players. So like Q said, everything's co-opted now. It's not even, at this point, my question is, as we roll into Sunday's action, what are teams going to do? Are they going to take a knee this week? Is everybody going to lock and hold hands? I saw something before we came on. Aaron Rodgers says that he and the Packers plan to lock arms for the rest of the season. And he encouraged the fans to do the same. Come on, bro. For real? For real? I guess you could say that's a start, but what is it starting for? All of it is a farce. But again, I understand what the NFL is about, protecting the shield of the NFL. Nothing more, nothing less. Because they would not have done this had it not been for those comments. Now, the second question, as far as athletes taking a knee, no, I don't have a problem with it because I don't care. I really don't. what you do during the national anthem is your business. I don't care one way or the other. It's not that big of a deal to me because in theory, if we're all paying attention to the flag and the song is being said, we ain't got time to be worrying about what somebody else is doing. Truthfully, if we're being truthful. And if you want to speak on the truth, understand that Colin Kaepernick sat on the bench for 2 games while the national anthem was being played. Someone asked him why was he sitting. So this happened not only happened once, but happened twice. It wasn't until the second time that it happened that someone had to ask him why was he sitting. And here's the thing. It wasn't even somebody on his team. It was somebody in the media that asked him, hey, well, why were you sitting for the anthem? And then he had planned to sit, but he met with some Navy SEALs and, you know, they put him up on some game and they said, well, look, we understand what it is that you're trying to do. So for us, why don't you just take a knee? Because you would then be showing respect to the veterans and the military and so forth and so on, and still saluting the flag in the process. That's what was said. And Colin Kaepernick clearly enunciated that to the people as to why he was taking a knee. Taking a knee wasn't about disrespecting the flag. It was actually honoring the flag. And he got this idea from the military. But the way this is being spun is that, or the way it was spun last year, was that he was disrespecting the flag, disrespecting the military. And Colin Kaepernick eloquently stated his point. He said what his action plan was, and he's followed through with it all the way through. Here we are in 2017, and we look up this past Sunday, and we got players taking knees. We got owners. We had owners out there on the field, and we had Ray motherfucking Lewis on both knees, Ken. I'm going to start right there. Your take on Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis, LaShawn McCoy, Jerry Jones, all of the owners. Man, we could throw in a lot of people in there, but let's stay on Ray Lewis. Oh my goodness, Ray Lewis. All I think about is that tweet. What I would encourage people to do is to go listen to Shannon Sharp's comments on Ray Lewis. I think they're spot on. Basically, and I agree. Like, here's a guy that was against Colin last year. And then as this thing has gone on over the last year or so, came around and kind of modified his position for whatever reasons. I don't know who spoke to him, but all of a sudden he was down for what Colin was doing. Then we know Ray said that he would never kneel because he respects the flag too much or something along those lines. And yeah, he was on 2 knees.
Ken actually, Ray came out today and this Negro done said, I wasn't on both knees protesting. I was praying.
Yeah.
Amidst the cops.
We don't believe you. You need more people.
Stop it, Q. You are lying to me, man.
So I walked away, JB, and I didn't drop on 1 knee in order to protest. Boom, I dropped on 2 knees, both knees, so I can simply honor God in the midst of chaos. Praying. Now, this makes me ask you a serious question. I have First Amendment rights myself. We got people standing, we got people bowing, we got people don't even want to respect the flag. If we want to make it right, make it through 2 ways. You can only stand or pray. We used to have it like that and chose to pray.
Man, get Ray Lewis the fuck up out of here, man. I'm tired of this dude, man. I'm tired of this dude for real.
Ray is on the coon train. I'm sorry. We just like that dude, man, makes these arbitrary ass videos about I was in Chicago the other day and trying to get that Martin Luther King voice. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was in Chicago the other day and I was talking to the brothers. We got to stop the violence. We are our own worst enemy. Like, dude, shut up.
Yeah, you got to stop. He has to stop the violence, but there's 2 young men that got killed here in Atlanta, and he was at the scene of the murder, and he and his partners walked. And he
got a petition.
And Ray swung on one of the guys, and he happened to have a knife in his hand, but nobody knows.
Bro, they don't started a petition to remove the Ray Lewis statue from the Ravens stadium.
Hey, where's the petition? I'll sign it.
Dude, Ben Roethlisberger. How about you stop raping people? How about that, Ben? Talking about something. I don't want to. Kneel be disrespectful. Ben, it's disrespectful. Rape. That's disrespectful, Ben.
Shut up, good Ben.
And goodbye, Ben. Ray, goodbye. Ray is gone. He is too far down in this sunken place. It's just ridiculous, man.
The only thing I have to add, Ray Lewis is a hypocrite. Ray Lewis is about Ray Lewis. And we mentioned this, and for those of you listening, if you did not catch our podcast, what was it, Ken, about 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where he was talking about the fact that, quote unquote, he was about to help Kaepernick get signed with the Ravens, and then he said that they shouldn't sign him, as if he's a part of the Ravens, organization. No, he's a alumni. He's an alumnus. He's not a member of the organization. But Ray Lewis is, like any other bootleg preacher, he is in the business for himself. And that's the way that I view him, like a bootleg preacher. So when I saw him on both knees, I was like, man, if you don't get your ass up. And the funny thing is when they pan the camera, I don't know which copy you guys saw, but when they pan the camera, the guy on his right was kind of looking at him like, bro, if you don't get the hell away from, like, he didn't want to be there because he knew that Ray Lewis was right next to him. So now he's on camera. And again, this dude, he's on both knees, and he just, just as 2 or 3 weeks ago, talking bad about Colin Kaepernick and why they didn't sign him and so forth and so on. Again, Ray Lewis is in the business of serving Ray Lewis. Believe none of what he says. He's a clown. He's a coon. I'm not. And don't get me wrong. I understand that people have opinions. And a lot of times, particularly in sports, and we're seeing a lot of this where fans get upset when they want athletes to speak out as long as they're saying what they want to say. We ain't on that tip here at Dead End Sports. Our motto is this is the place where sports opinions collide. No, I don't necessarily have to agree with anything that you say, but I can respect it. I can't respect Ray Lewis. I have no respect for Ray Lewis. I'm saying, and I tweeted this on Sunday when I saw it, and I still stand by this. I'm surprised that he took off his tap shoes to take a knee. So there. That's all I'm going to say on Ray Lewis. Before we move on to the NBA, man, lastly, Colin Kaepernick, whose name, ironically, FIFO did not get mentioned all weekend long. His name did not get mentioned all weekend long as we saw all of these protests, people taking knees, people locked in arms, nobody saying nothing, teams not coming out for the national anthem. Colin Kaepernick's name is the name that did not get mentioned, and that's the whole travesty of this past weekend. So, FIFO, my question to you, if it's about equality and if it's about, because Colin's message is clearly lost. They've clearly hijacked the message, and it's almost like, the NFL players almost have to find something else to do different, because now it's like, it's like when your dad starts doing the dances that you do, your dances ain't cool no more. You know what I'm saying? So the owners have basically said, well, look, you guys are going to protest. We'll protest with you. So now, as far as Colin Kaepernick is concerned, how close, if at all, are we to seeing Colin Kaepernick in an NFL jersey this year?
I honestly believe that he will wind up on the squad this year. And this is just maybe the optimistic me speaking right now, but I still think he obviously has talent. I think this is still early in the season where a team that might be on the up and up, they have a catastrophic injury, and you may want to bring somebody like this in. We've seen it in the past, so that's the reason why I'm still optimistic. We've seen it with Michael Vick going to Pittsburgh. We've just seen it. We've had journeyman quarterback. Now, even though his message has been skewed, I think everybody using it, kind of has Colin flying under the radar. And if he truly wants to play the football again, he may get another opportunity. I think he deserves another opportunity just based off of talent. Football is a talent sport. You want to accumulate the most of it at every position. So just based off of that, I think he will. I don't think, it just sucks. It just sucks because this guy was getting pretty much ridiculed for his stance, and now everybody's just making a mockery out of it. Like, it just sucks. And I even though it's a kind of, it is uncomfortable topic, I don't like the fact that what we're having to address in terms of this topic. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we're not talking about the real message. We're talking about everything around it. But, it is what it is, man. I definitely think Colin will get another opportunity. I think he's too talented not to play again.
True indeed. True indeed. What about you, Q? Colin, man, still ironically has one of the highest selling NFL jerseys in spite of not having a team. Right now, man, what do you think? Do you think that we'll see him on an NFL? How close are we to seeing him, if at all, on an NFL sideline this season?
I don't think we're very close at all, man. I really don't, because just the reactionary response to Trump, his statement, the way that people have, like I said earlier, they've co-opted the message and they completely have lost sight. And the thing is, though, this is very intentional. I need people to understand that. This is very intentional that Colin Kaepernick does not have a job. This is very intentional that now people are kneeling for everything under the sun but police violence. So I think we're very far away, man, because if they truly got it and if they truly understood, he would have had a workout Monday morning with the Bengals. He would have had a workout Monday morning with the Colts. He would have had a workout Monday morning with, you could make a case that he should be having a workout for the Giants. I mean, come on now, man. Like, I'm just saying that
you're probably
there's
right,
there's a lot of teams. And let me just preface this by saying this, that people understand this for people who don't understand why we're riding with Colin. No one's saying Colin Kaepernick is Tom Brady, and no one's saying he's Drew Brees. But he deserves a shot in the NFL because he's definitely better than Scott Tolzien, and he's definitely better than Jacoby Brissett. So that's the reason why the talent should precede his stance. The coach in San Francisco, Chip Kelly, said Chip Kelly, of all people, said he wasn't a distraction. He kept basically a lot of that out of the locker room unless people came to him with it. And he did not, distract anybody from our goal of winning games. So I don't understand. He could definitely be a backup for Dallas. He could definitely be a backup for Pittsburgh. Definitely be a backup for the Eagles because we have no backup because Nick Foles' shoulder is terrible. He could be backup around the league, and he could start for at least 4 or 5 teams. But they don't get it, because if they got it, he would have had 5 workouts lined up on Monday morning. The movement is done, man. It's been co-opted completely. We are so far away, Kyle, and I don't see anything on the horizon unless a catastrophic injury happens to a starting quarterback and they're going all in on a season, unless an organization does something like that where they just push the panic button and say, all right, we need something because the talent is going to leave, or if their contracts are up and they just want to cash in on a Super Bowl run, perhaps. But I'm putting the percentage at like 10% at this point, man, because just seeing the cognitive dissonance that people are having with the kneeling. Dude, Kyle, very plainly, let me end with this. This is how we know people are missing the point. People are kneeling while still putting their hand over their heart, pledging allegiance to the flag.
I think it will. I think it will because I think the NFL has been basically put on blast. And while I agree partly with what Q is saying, I disagree with him having like workouts like Monday with the team, because I think that would have showed that they were indeed keeping him out because of the protest. I think having him in at any point this week or after this would be a bad move for the NFL. There has to be an injury. And I think now that this has happened, I can see the NFL reversing field, and once somebody gets hurt in a bad way and they're done for the season or missing 6 to 8 weeks or something like that, I can see him getting a call, because I think the NFL wants to protect their image. And I think that they'll probably try to sign him in order to do so. However, I do want to add that there were a lot of boos about the kneeling, and there are a lot of people that are still against him and the boycott, and they're boycotting what he did last year, and then, what you just basically said. So it's also a possibility they could ride this out and just be like, all right, well, that was against Trump. That's over and done with. We're back to square one. But I would like to believe that this weekend was a wake up call for some owners in the NFL that are not opposed to what he's done.
Hey man, I commend you and FIFO for being optimistic. I just don't see it, man. I just as much as I would like for it to, I would love for it to happen. I just don't see it, man, because I think here's the thing. Kaepernick is a guy who said that he would not take a knee. And, the narrative, think about the narratives that we heard this summer. Oh, he's a distraction. Well, these teams have enough distractions right now that, Colin Kaepernick could come and fit right in the mix, no problem. You have teams, look at it, take a team like the Indianapolis Colts, right? Just awful. I mean, and their season is slowly but surely slipping away. Each week they keep saying, well, Andrew Luck might be back. He might be back. He might be back. We don't know when Andrew Luck is coming back. Colin Kaepernick could step in and help them right now. And, there's a handful of teams that he could start for right now. But, these owners, and I think they have clearly made, as evidenced by what we saw this past weekend, they've made a case that they're going to do things their way. And again, the NFL, its owners, Roger Goodell, they are about protecting their brand. They don't care anything else, period. Because Colin Kaepernick at this point can't do any harm to what's been done. Yeah, trust and believe these teams pissed off a lot of people just by doing what they did this past weekend, period. So I don't know that Colin could come in and make it worse for anybody from a PR perspective. But nah, man, it's not going to happen. And you know what? I think there's a part of me, Colin Kaepernick, one thing I don't think people really understand, the guy is very intelligent. Listen to him speak and listen to some of the things that he talks about. He's very intelligent. I would not be surprised if Colin Kaepernick understood that when he opted out of his deal and when he played his last game last year that he was done in the NFL. I think he may have understood that. And I think when we look back at this moment, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, Colin Kaepernick, they'll be talking about him in a different light. They'll be talking about the fact that he paved the way for something else to happen, because I think something else bigger is going to come from this. And the unfortunate thing is Colin Kaepernick may not be the beneficiary of it. He may be paving the way for someone 10, 15, 20 years down the line. But as far as him playing in the NFL, I don't think it's going to happen, man. I would love to see it happen. I just don't think that it's going to happen because I think they pretty much dug their heels in and they're not going to let up because at this point, you really don't have anything to lose by bringing him in. Nothing but, positives to gain because, there's a segment of people that hate the NFL right now. And you signing Kaepernick's not going to make it any easier or worse. So we'll see. As I mentioned, as we move on to the NBA, as I mentioned at the top, man, we talked about the commander in tweet, his dissidence for, athletes, or shall I say rich black athletes. Well, a couple of weeks ago, our boy Steph Curry had, made it known that if invited, as most championship teams are, if invited to the White House, and the Warriors coming off the championship this past summer, that he wasn't going. Kevin Durant also was very outspoken saying that he wasn't going. And Kevin Durant said, and I quote, if I know my guys, nobody's going to go. Steve Kerr has been very outspoken against the president. So basically, it sounded to me as if there was going to be any faction of the Warriors going, it was probably going to be the owner, the trainer, and the water boy. Right. So Steph Curry gets asked again late last week, I think it was Friday, about his plans to go to the White House. And Steph said, no, I'm not going. And I think, from there, Steph didn't think anything else about it. And he said he did not understand what had happened until he woke up to like 30 text messages. Well, the commander in tweet decided to revoke the White House invitation because, quote unquote, because Steph Curry was hesitant. Now, Steph had already said that he wasn't going, so I don't know where the hesitation came from. Nonetheless, within a span of 24 hours, or actually probably a span of about 12 hours, the commander in tweet decided to take on both the NBA and the NFL. So, Q, man, what did you think about him, quote unquote, revoking his invitation to the White House to Steph and the Warriors?
Sounds to me like quitting the job that you already got fired from, for real. Yeah, man. Like basically saying, I didn't want you anyway to a girl who turned you down. Like, that don't mean nothing. So, like, this whole thing really comedic to me because Steph and it's like literally, I think it was like a week or two after the Warriors won the finals that KD was like, yeah, we ain't going. And then Steph was like, yeah, we probably not going. And so this isn't anything new to me. I wouldn't expect anything else from KD. Probably besides Popovich, Kerr is probably the most solid politically that I can think of in the NBA. So this isn't this isn't shocking to me. I'm proud because this is how you resist, fascist presidents, and this is how you resist racism and bigotry and white supremacy as a whole. You resist it by saying that this is not okay. This is unacceptable. This is disgusting behavior by 45, and 45 keeps running his mouth on Twitter and he keeps on embarrassing himself. And this isn't anything that I wouldn't expect from a guy like KD, who's very outspoken. For all I know, KD probably on his other burner Twitter right now, firing shots at going off right now, typing miles a minute. But Steph going in and LeBron getting involved, just great.
What do you think about LeBron's response too?
Man, LeBron is funny, man, because he's very postured as a speaker, and the way that he presents everything, it's always on brand. So for him to literally at Steph Curry in the tweet had me dying in there, same man, because it's literally like, first off, I thought when I first read it, I was like, oh my God, LeBron just called Steph a bum. But then I was like, I thought we had to get LeBron out of here for a second. I was like, come on, LeBron. But then I reread it. I was like, oh, he's calling Trump a bum. Okay, cool. So then he was like, you bum. Steph Curry told you, all right, he ain't going or whatever. So that's that. And yeah, I really respected LeBron. And when a reporter asked him at his media day the other day,
that was funny.
He was just like, yeah, he's a bum because he is. And everyone was laughing. And that's how, as an athlete, you can use your position, you can use your privilege. And that's basically my thoughts on it, that if you're going to be an athlete and you're not going to take a symbolic stance, then take a material stance. And a material stance would be, I'm not going to go shake your hand and act like everything goes okay. I'm not going to be in your presence and chuck it up with you and hardy hard with you when you're literally defending white supremacy and you're literally enacting bigotry and racism against marginalized communities within the United States and abroad on a daily basis. So I really respect Steph. I really respect KD for doing what they're doing. I really respect the Warriors and and also UNC. By the way, shout out to UNC because they said that they're not going. So all teams, like JJ Redick said today at a Sixers media day, he said all teams shouldn't go. But that's just his opinion, and I share that opinion. If you truly believe in what's right and just, I don't think you should go to a divisive, disgusting human being like Trump and act like everything's okay, because people love to get mad at athletes and say that, oh, they're privileged. What do they have to, worry about? But they also get mad at poor people when they protest and say, oh, get a job. So they're never going to be satisfied.
Nah.
People in the streets who are poor, tearing stuff up, to privileged people who are using their voice on Twitter. Those who care about the power structure and want to protect the way that life is for those on top and oppress the marginalized, they're always going to say, oh, this isn't acceptable. Well, we don't really care anymore, man, because this is not the time and the day. We are not caring about the opinions of people who wish to oppress us anymore, man. It's all about moving forward and standing up against what people like 45 represent. And I really respect the Warriors for taking that stance.
There it is. What about you, FIFO? Your take on the revoking of the invitation and also LeBron's response?
Man, this dude Trump, man. This dude is reality TV, real talk. This is all this is, man. He's just playing. What was the name of his show where you say everybody was fired?
The Apprentice. Yeah, that's how he sounded.
This is all he's doing, man. This is all he's doing. Trump hasn't really changed. We knew what we was getting ourselves into. It is what it is, man. In terms of him revoking it, like, does it surprise you? He just fired the Warriors. That's all he did, man. It's part of his MO. In terms of the Warriors stating that they're not going to go, Q alluded to it, man. In terms of Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr, I think those are the best voices to hear when it's coming from the NBA in terms of everything that we're seeing with the current president. And I already knew. Look, man, in terms of professional sports here in America, in the major sports that we're talking about, NFL, NBA, overwhelmingly black. If the majority of NBA teams already boycotted Trump Tower, do you really think they're going to come and, you know what I'm saying? Like really, like, yeah, I'm going to mess with y'all? Hell no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And again, Q said it as well. KD said it a couple of days after they won a championship that they weren't going to go. I don't think any championship team is going to go. I think it's going to be a bad PR move. So even if you believe in Donald Trump, I think agreeing with Donald Trump and seeing public with him and agreeing to whatever, being on the same accord with Donald Trump right now is bad press. So I can't see any of these institutions, any of these professional teams that rely on sponsorship and public persona really trying to mess that up at all. I don't think it's right now. It's not what's the word I'm looking for? Right now, it's not a why am I losing this word? Either way, man, look, nobody's gonna go visit the White House. That's just me. I don't see how it happens.
True indeed. What about you, Ken? Your take on, like people said, Trump firing the Warriors and LeBron's response?
Well, I don't really have much to add on the revoking of the invitation. Obviously, is not anything that's surprising. I think the response to that by the NBA, I thought was really, really dope. Mm-hmm. And how they came together as a family to back their boy, Steph Curry. As far as LeBron's response, it's quite amazing, man. The amount of power this man holds when you really think about it, the reach that he has and the amount of respect that he has as a person, to be able to call the president a bum and basically not even receive a lot of backlash from what I've saw. No. Obviously, there will be people that disagree with it that are Trump supporters, but everything that I've seen was positive, and just marveling at the fact that he did it. Like, of all the words in the world, bum, and it's just the language. It was. I just found that interesting. So, but it goes back to what I've said on this show before, in terms of LeBron's influence, power, reach, likability. He's truly a global icon, man. And he's doing something that Kobe didn't do, that Jordan didn't do, that a lot of NBA players that came before him didn't do. And while he hasn't been able to match some of their accomplishments on the court in the way that some of us would have liked, he's doing a damn good job off the court and the things that he's doing for the community and using his platform to speak out against things that he feels is wrong. So I commend him for that.
Man, I've said it before. I love LeBron, man. I'm not a Cavs fan. I'm a Hawks fan. But I love this dude, man. I guess really to kind of put it in context, I know we have a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are much younger than I am. But like in the 80s when I came up, if you call somebody a bum, like that was almost like that was one of the ultimate signs of disrespect, to call another man a bum. Like, there's one other term you probably could call another man, and you know what I mean? And that probably would start a fight. Starts with an F. I'm not going to use the word. And I apologize for all the cussing I've been doing tonight, but I don't. If I offend anybody, I really don't give a shit. But I'm sorry. I'm in one of these moods because we generally don't cuss on here. But fuck it. Anyway, so yeah. Bum. For him to call the president, the leader of the free world, a bum, I thought was just downright hilarious. Like, when I read it, man, I couldn't stop laughing because, again, LeBron is, even though LeBron is 32, 33 years old, he has, what people in the South call an old soul, right? So you can tell, like, he's heard that word before, because in the 80s, if you call somebody a bum, like, you probably need to get ready to square up because you're about to start a fight. So for him to call the leader of the free world a bum, that made me laugh. So I love LeBron, man. I don't care if LeBron doesn't win another title ever. He has done, and I've said this before, and there's a LeBron podcast coming on my podcast, 12 Card Podcast. I'll tell you guys about it some other time, but it's coming. LeBron has done more off the court than a lot of his predecessors have done off the court. And I think that's what's going to be his ultimate legacy when you look back on his career. Yeah, the championships, the MVPs, the finals, all the things, taking out the three, coming back from 3-1, everything that he's done, but he's done so much more off the court. And again, like Ken said, his presence, his leadership, his power, and more than anything else, LeBron understands his power. I mean, this man he called the president a bum, and nobody batted an eye. We all laughed. And I mean, like, it was just great. But yeah, I loved it. Speaking of basketball, man, before we get out of here, we got to talk. I know this has been one of the more heavier Dead End Sports podcasts. We want to thank everybody for checking us out. We like to do this podcast at least once a week. Make sure that you download, subscribe. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, pretty much everywhere. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Dead End Sports. Again, I am the host, 12 Kyle. Filling in for our boy Beezy 430 is my man Q the Six Man, FIFO, and Ken. We're all in the building. But before we get out of here, man, we got to talk some basketball. I got, we got a basketball head on here of my man Q right here. So I'm going to throw it to him first. Amongst all of the other garbage that was going on in the sports world on Saturday, a little trade happened, man, that we didn't really see coming, man. Carmelo Anthony gets dealt from the New York Knicks finally to the Oklahoma City Thunder, man. So now for Enes Kanter and I think like a bag of rice. So now, Q, man, OKC's got a big three, at least for next year. Paul George, obviously Russell Westbrook, the reigning MVP, and now Carmelo Anthony. So my question to you is, Q, how much better can Melo make this team?
Yeah, man, I think this is a pretty good question because there's a lot of layers to it, but I'm going to condense it down really quick. It makes them better because they have three level scorers. Paul George, PG, once considered a future MVP. I still think he can be MVP this season. Russell Westbrook, MVP of last season, averages triple-double, and Carmelo Anthony, one of the most prolific and deadly scorers that the NBA has ever seen. So you have three level scorers from three different players. I think they can be considerably better just off of the fact that the talent on the floor accounts for playing man-to-man on every single one of them because they all can do a bevy of different things. And like I said multiple times, they're three-level scorers, meaning that they can get a bucket from behind the arc, within the arc, and they can post up. Russell's a little more spotty from three, but his shot got a lot better last season because he took a lot more of them. And I think he's kind of getting better at catch and shoot. Not the best, but he's getting better. So I think that you could considerably say they have three level scorers. You have a lineup that projects to be Russell at the 1, Andre Roberson probably at the 2, PG at the 3, Carmelo at the small ball 4, and Steven Adams at the 5. I think this makes them possibly the second best team in the West and could be at least the third best team in the NBA. What makes them so deadly is the fact that now you have to play straight up on three guys. And that's going to leave mismatches down low for Steven Adams to do his work because Melo can stretch the floor. And aside from Draymond Green and aside from Anthony Davis, if someone can point out to me another, maybe Serge Ibaka, but that's in the East. If someone can point out to me a stretch forward who can guard Carmelo Anthony, I will wait on that. So that's what makes Carmelo so deadly at the 4 because he stretches the floor, allows Russ to do his thing. Catch and shoot should work to their favor. The only reservations I have about this, everyone, is team defense and half-court offense. You have three guys, like I said, due to the fact that they are three-level scorers, they know that they can use up the clock to get that shot. Then the thing is that when the ball doesn't move, the offense becomes stagnant. And Carmelo Anthony kind of is a black hole on offense. At least he was in New York. I'm going to give an optimistic pass for the last 4 or 5 New York seasons. I'll say 4, because I just don't think that when you're not motivated, you're not going to play well. So Carmelo Anthony was completely unmotivated. He was just cashing in checks. The team that they put around them were terrible. They tried to run the triangle, which is damn near obsolete now. You have to run variations of the triangle to be successful. You can't just run it straight up, because you have to have guys that won't fit in the NBA's landscape today. The NBA is more built around the 3. But now you have 2 guys in that Thunder lineup who can get extremely hot from 3, and they have great post games. Russell's a big point guard who likes to post up. So now you have guys who can score from almost anywhere. You have a great young center, Steven Adams, who had a down season last year, but I think he'll recover and probably become one of the best centers in the NBA, because he's going to have a stretch 4. And Roberson is easily one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, hands down. His shot, terrible, but he's a guy, a guy who can. Yeah, man, they were fouling him in the playoffs to go to the free throw line to slow the game down. But your luxury now is that you have guys like Felton there. You got guys like Patrick Patterson, Jeremy Grant, Abrinas, Samaj Christian. I like this Thunder team a lot, and the only thing that's going to hold them back is the first, probably, I would say 25 games. It's going to be a struggle to figure out who takes last shot, who gets the most touches a game, how to move the ball, team defense, and half-court offense. In transition, they should be beautiful to see. PG, Russ bringing the ball down the floor fast as I don't know what, PG running to the corner, Carmelo running to the corner. It should be great to see. And I think that they can challenge Golden State. It's just going to be, can they gel quick enough by playoff time to understand their roles and not deviate from them if Golden State starts to break them down? Because great teams stick to their scheme regardless of what the game is dictating to them. You dictate the pace. You dictate how you're going to play your game. That's what great teams do. Even when they're down 25, you're still going to play the way that you play, because it's what got you to this position.
True indeed. Good breakdown, man. FIFA, what about you, man? They got a 3-headed monster over there in Oklahoma City, man. How do you think Melo's going to, help them as far as they move forward with this team?
Let's look at what OKC was under Sam Presti's vision. He drafted 3 MVPs, got rid of 2 of them. Well, got rid of one of them. The other one decided to leave. Drafted arguably somebody that can contend for Defensive Player of the Year when he was in his prime. Another guy that was, two-way player, kind of ahead of his time in terms of Jeff Green. And now he's proven that he can make trades and pretty much give up role players and gain superstars. And while they had just 2 superstars, they took the quote-unquote best team to 7 games, and they were up 3-1. And that's just with 2 guys. Paul George is a level below KD, but he's still on that level. And Carmelo, they haven't had – Russell has not played with 2 guys like this. James Harden was a little bit different, but mainly because we have not seen even James Harden right now step up in big moments. Melo just get buckets. It don't matter what the moment is. He's going to go get buckets. So I think in terms of just talent, this is by far the most talented Russell Westbrook has played with. And I think it's really on him. I think he is the engine. I think he is the key to their success. He has to be more of a point guard. He averages a triple-double. The man can pass. He can create plays. So can Paul George. And so can Carmelo if he wants to. And I think everybody has to understand that's on this squad that they all have something to gain, just like Paul George said. Like, they all have something to prove. They need each other. And once they figure that out and everybody's able to be, give a little for the greater good, this team can be scary. Now, it's all on Billy Donovan as well. and I know this is the point that Ken was going to go to, so I'm not going to steal too much of his thunder. No pun intended. Billy Donovan has his work cut out for him because you had KD, you lost KD, you coached the MVP. Now you get two legitimate superstars. If he can't make this work, and you can't retain the services of one, if not all three of these guys moving forward, Billy Donovan's out. Sam Presti could possibly be out. But on paper, they are the second best team in the West. And I don't want to disrespect Popovich because Popovich alone accounts for one, maybe two superstars. But with all that being said, on paper, OKC is by far the second best team in the West. I think they're going to be exciting to watch. I think they're definitely going to need some time to gel. But if and when they do, that is going to be a scary lineup.
No doubt. It's funny how you said no disrespect to Pop, and then you proceeded to disrespect Pop. Ken, what you got, man? How do you think this thing shakes out, man, with Melo going to Oklahoma City?
Well, when I first saw the news, I was like, how's that going to work?
Right.
Because it was a crazy trade to see, like, whoa, Melo going to OKC with Paul George and Russell Westbrook. And it was like, how's that going to work? Because of, the games, and Q has given us a breakdown on how, and Ref is added to it. So we'll just wait and see what this team looks like when they gel. For me, I got to give Sam Presti credit, man. Like I've criticized him on this show.
You have.
Yeah. And now to pull something off like this, like, I got to give him his props. Good job. I do know that based on what I heard Woj say today on Mike and Mike, that they're going to have luxury tax issues starting next year, and somewhere in the $300,000 tax range. So they'll only be able to possibly keep two. I think Melo has another year on his contract. And the question that came out of that was, well, are they going all in for this year? So there are a lot of questions because this just landed on our desk this weekend, and I still got to read a lot of stuff. I still got to think about it. I still got to, just do my research on how they're going to figure out how to make all this work. But for me, man, like, this is just further proof the NBA is nuts. We're in for one hell of a season coming up, and it's just 3 weeks away. I'm looking at two people. Russell Westbrook, you're on watch. You were amazing last year with nobody. And now you have two guys. And you have, like Raph said, a KD light in Paul George. And you have Melo, who isn't afraid to go get it done when it needs to get done. In the fourth quarter with games on the line, or when they need buckets, that's what he does. And how are you going to be able to take a back seat to all of that? That's fine. We'll see how that works. I would like to believe that Russell will, and he just did what he did last year because of the pieces of that team. But Raph is absolutely right. There's only one person I'm looking at, and that's Billy Donovan. And I told you guys 2 years ago that this guy is on watch, and that we need to start looking at him because he was brought in to win a championship. You guys pushed back heavily on that.
We did. And
we just disagreed. KD has publicly come out and basically like, yeah, I couldn't win with that guy as the coach. And now you have no excuses. You have 3 elite players on your team. You have to go to the finals this year. That's it. Nothing less. You have to go to the finals this year. And anything less than that is a waste. So that's it, man. It's all about Billy Donovan, and we'll see how this all plays out.
No doubt. Pressure bust pipes. I think I was surprised that Melo ended up, because we knew that he had his eyes and heart set on Houston. And I want to say like late Friday, we started getting reports that, that he would waive his no trade clause for, I think it was OKC and some other team. I can't remember off the top of my head. And I think Cleveland, that's what it was. So it came as a surprise that he ends up in OKC, man. But I like this team. I like this roster. Much like what you guys said, I think it's going to take some time for them to gel. I'm not really too sure about their bench play. I think they could scare the Warriors. In a 7-game series, I can't pick them to beat the Warriors. They might get 2 games. I think all eyes will be on Russell Westbrook. He has, I think, until October 15th to sign his extension. And, OKC is really kind of up in the air because they don't know at this point is if Russ is going to, sign this extension now or wait till the end of the season. He may wait till the end of the season, but, if he does, then they could be, have the prospect of, losing him as well as Paul George this offseason. So, but at least for the here and now, I'd put them behind San Antonio. I can't Pop is Pop, man. I can't put them above San Antonio. But I definitely put them over Houston. But they're going to be fun to watch. It's going to be interesting because, as we mentioned, Russell Westbrook coming off a season where he averages a triple-double. Could he do it again? Possibly, but not at the numbers that he put up because he's going to have to take less shots. But, you got Melo, a guy who can stretch the floor. Again, OKC is a team that I think is known for that, or at least at one point in time, were known for their defense, but they gave up a lot in this process to acquire these stars in George and Carmelo. So, they lose a lot of depth on the bench. So I'm not really sure how they're going to look. I know that they're good on the top, but the middle and the bottom of the team, I'm not sure how that shapes out, how well they all will gel. Time will tell, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing them play when the season tips in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think it's going to be – I think they are going to be one of the teams to watch. And I'm happy for Carmelo that he's, moved on. It was these last couple of years in New York has been tough. And I think a lot of it had to do with Phil Jackson. And, Carmelo wanted to stay there and try to make it work. And now, they turn the reins over to Kristaps Porzingis, and we'll see what he can do. And he's going to have to struggle to try to carry that bum team. So we'll see. I am definitely looking forward to the NBA. We are coming up on the end of the program. We want to thank you, as you always do, for listening to the Dead End Sports Podcast. Again, this is a weekly sports podcast. And again, we want to thank you all for checking us out. So now it is time for our closing thoughts. Q, you're the guest. So why don't you hit us with your closing thought?
Hey, man, my closing thought is when it's time to put up or shut up, sometimes it's just best to fall back because when you discuss things like Colin Kaepernick and how people are sitting or standing, whatever their stance may be, there's a decision to either put up or shut up. And by that, I mean backing up your rhetoric with action. So the target of my quick little soliloquy for this week is going to be to the Jacksonville Jaguars owner, Mr. Shad Khan, who earlier in the season said, I would have no problem with considering signing Colin Kaepernick. Blake Bortles is your quarterback. You just blew out the Baltimore Ravens 44-0. Okay, cool. So perhaps that's probably cooled off. But it's still the Jaguars. We'll see how that goes. Regardless, Shad Khan gave over $1 million to Donald Trump's inauguration. So When it's time to put up or shut up, what did he do? He made a hypocrite of himself. Went out there with his players and locked arms in unity. You know, you're not kneeling. You're going to lock arms with your players. Okay. Well, let's just break that down for one quick second, man. This is what I mean when I'm talking about hypocrisy and the need to put up or shut up. When it was time, when no one was looking, when it was time for you to put up or shut up, you put your money where your mouth was, and you gave $1 million to Donald Trump. But now that he has so gracefully come after the NFL in his little tirade in Huntsville, now it's time for you to lock arms with your players in quote unquote unity. Well, my problem with that, Mr. Khan, is very, very simple. Hypocrisy has no place when injustice is present. You are either with the people or you are against the people. And your actions of donating $1 million to Donald Trump, not only probably, but I'll say definitely emboldened him and made him feel the support from the NFL. It definitely backed up the rhetoric. It definitely supported his stances because you're letting him know that it's okay. I don't reward somebody who I don't agree with, so I'm not going to buy any excuse that, oh, that was just money for, a friend or whatever. If you're friends with Donald Trump, I'm still looking at you sideways. So you're rewarding behavior. This is after the I grab women by the blank, I don't even wait. This is after calling a Mexican judge incompetent simply for his race. This is after 1980s where he put an ad in the New York Times calling for the unjust execution of the Central Park Five, who was later acquitted on racial bias. This is after he literally got on TV and said that he likes people who weren't captured in the army and people who weren't captured in the armed forces. And regardless of how you feel or how I feel about the armed forces, this is a man who dodged the draft damn near 8 times. So if you want to talk about being big and bad, then you should have no problem getting in and putting your money where your mouth is. But this is just another case of hypocrisy supporting hypocrisy. The reason why all these owners like Jerry Jones and Mr. Shah Khan are coming out right now is not because they stand with their players or they stand with whatever or whatever Colin Kaepernick stood for. They stand for capital. They stand for their money. They stand to put on a good image so their fans who do support the people like Colin Kaepernick and the people who don't support Donald Trump don't turn around and say, wow, he didn't even stand with his players, or have a moment of consciousness and say, wow, this is disgusting. The owner really gave $1 million or whatever. This is just another case of owners protecting their property, and their property is their brand. The branding that is the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is already a trash brand because it's a garbage team, isn't much to defend and much to stand up for, but it's all Mr. Khan has because it's his project. He's not going to give that up for anything. So for you to lock arms with your players, Mr. Khan, is a toothless gesture. It's a cowardly gesture. It's a hypocritical gesture because you do not back up this gesture with material advocacy for what you claim this gesture is supposed to be about. This was strictly about protecting your pockets. This was not about standing up against police violence. This was not about standing up against Donald Trump. And my last part I'm going to say is this. No one gets a cookie from me for standing up against an open bigot and a white supremacist. You don't get a cookie, dude. Okay, you don't support Donald Trump. That's like saying I wake up and brush my teeth in the morning. Congratulations. Do you want a Nobel Peace Prize for that? You shouldn't. That should be just in my opinion, the basis. If you believe in equality for everybody, this man has exemplified that he very, very justly in his mind likes to separate people on race, gender, and religion. So if you're a person who claims to be about equality, how can you lock arms and say that you care about unity, but yet you give him $1 million to that same man who divides people by race, gender, even sexuality? Back in the day, there were questionable comments. My final point, put your money where your mouth is when people aren't looking. So when people see what you do in public, they can back it up and say that this person is about what they say they're about. So, Mr. Khan, you should be ashamed of yourself for co-opting the movement that Colin Kaepernick has almost cost himself and probably cost himself his job for, his livelihood. Also, you can have a photo op and protect your little brand that hasn't won anything.
Good point. Good point. What about you, FIFO? Your closing thought?
I'm going to keep it real short, simple, to the point. Sometimes you have too many yes men, and sometimes you just need some real dudes around you. Somebody need to take Donald Trump's phone. That's all I got.
Hey, I'm with it. What about you, Ken? Your closing thought? Kenneth. Whoa, Ken.
Yeah, my bad. Mike was muted. I was talking about Kaepernick, and this thought popped in my head, and it just came out, and I referred to him as a modern day Ali. People get offended because of the comparisons between the two. But I think it fits. When we look at the things that Ali went through during his time, the vitriol, the hatred, the disgust, the things that were thrown at him because of his opposition to the war, seems eerily familiar to me when we talk about Kaepernick. And yes, Kaepernick didn't go to jail. Ali is the greatest boxer of all time. Kaepernick isn't on top of the game like that, but he did play in one of the biggest stages in football. A lot of athletes, a lot of quarterbacks can't say they do that. Can't say they have. And a lot of them were not a throwaway from winning it. So Colin has played at a very high level in the NFL. And he has sacrificed his playing career to fight for people. And to me, I think he's deserving of that description, because while we would like to believe that the things that people were saying to Ali was isolated to that time, we're finding out today that it's not. And Colin has become a hated man. And people say this, and it's true, that years from now, we will look back on what he's done, the conversations that started from it, to us talking about it a year from now, to the point where the NFL is even considering or listening to players putting together Social Activism Month. This is all because of Colin Kaepernick. That massive protest and discussions that took place over the weekend, as much as I hate it, it started because of Colin Kaepernick. Without him, we wouldn't have even gotten to that, to even get to the point where we can remind people of why this whole thing started in the very beginning. So when I refer to Colin Kaepernick as a modern day Ali, I think it's applicable. And I think at some point, years from now, more and more people will think the same.
Good point, Ken. I have two final thoughts. My first final thought is it again on Colin Kaepernick. What got lost, and I kind of talked about it a little earlier, what got lost in all of this was Colin Kaepernick's name this past weekend, which by all accounts, from what I could tell, didn't get mentioned at all. The gesture I explained earlier as to why he decided to take a knee as opposed to sitting for the national anthem. And it's become, obviously hijacked, and it's now a fashion thing. You have, and I said this last year that we saw videos of 10-year-olds at football games taking the knee. I mean, at 10 years old, what do you know? I mean, really? I said all that to say this. Even though his name got lost in the mix, let us not forget why he took a knee. It was for the accountability of police officers murdering innocent black and brown people. Philando Castile, no conviction. Terrence Crutcher, no conviction. Sandra Bland, no conviction. Eric Garner, no conviction. Mike Brown, no conviction. Rika Boyd, no conviction. Sean Bell, no conviction. Freddie Gray, no conviction. Tamir Rice, no conviction. Danroy Henry, no conviction. Oscar Grant III, no conviction. Kendrick McDade, no conviction. No conviction. Ayanna Jones, no conviction. Ramarley Graham, no conviction. Amadou Diallo, no conviction. Trayvon Martin, no conviction. I don't have to keep going. There's a reason for this. Don't let it get twisted by what you saw this past Sunday. That's what it's about. And if you have a problem with people being murdered innocently by the citizens who have been hired to protect them, then you're a part of the problem. I've often said that we did not get movement in this country. Due to knowledge, we did not get any movement in this country in the 60s with the civil rights movement until white people got tired of turning on their TVs, seeing black folks being hosed and beaten and, chased by dogs. I'm hoping that even though Colin's message has gotten lost, that we will not forget that this is what it's about. It ain't about taking a knee. It ain't about holding hands. It ain't about singing Kumbaya. It's about that. It's about the accountability of the fact that you have innocent, unarmed people of color, American citizens, many of whom stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance and they, sing the national anthem, or maybe they used to. They're no longer here. It's about the accountability. Do not let that lesson be lost in any of your consciousness. And if you don't have a problem with that, then something is severely wrong with you. You don't have to be anti-police to be about people surviving interactions with police. I don't like police. My brother's a cop. My brother-in-law's a cop. I respect the job that he has. I don't like police, but I want every interaction that he has, just like any other cop, to go with both of them, both he and whomever he stops, peacefully, and they both go about their ways. But that didn't happen for the people that I named just now. And that's what Colin Kaepernick was here for. And if you're not a part of the problem, if you're not a part of the solution, then you're a part of the problem. And I think there's a lot of people out there they don't want to hear it, but you have to listen. You don't have a choice at this point. Thanks for checking out another edition of the Dead End Sports Podcast. For my boy Q filling in for Beezy 430. We got my man FIFO and Ken. I'm your host, 12 Kyle. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
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 Impeach the bum.
You bum.